created in such a way that it has an access.
So you could almost, you could almost, no.
Football. That was a good sport to say. What's what you play? Yeah, you can trip and fall. That's sport. What do you do? Field hockey. What sports do you do? You didn't do any. Well, you will. So, let's say I'm playing football.
Wait, it's not supposed to be so zero's all the way open and it's all good.
Can you believe that? There are several processes that all organisms have to do. And so
He's the principal of this school, and I think he's a really nice person just to let us use this wonderful space.
Thank you, Lydia and Kritika. You know, I think that, you know, when people ask me what the most rewarding part of being associated with a school is, you know, so many people look around and go, oh gosh, it's the achievement of the school, it's the size of the school, it's the test scores. It really is not. It really is about the joy of watching, again, realizing that every one of you have spent a lot of time to come out today. I know time, especially at TJ, is a very short commodity. You know, it's a valuable commodity. And the fact that so many people, our esteemed speakers today, have come from far away to present and talk about this and be committed to really helping mankind, because that's really what we're talking about.
You might recognize the stage. Can you guys tell me what it is? It's here. Yeah. So the top picture, the one with me in the black, is me giving the induction speech at the National Genetic Society I was working on, was titled "The Selective Inhibitor of Plasmodium falciparum H-1 as a Treatment for Malaria," which is a pretty big title, but a lot of the stuff that I learned in the pathway of what I was doing to work on the drug that they're working on, really huge life skill. But the most important thing that I got out of my experience there was my passion for malaria. And so that's when, towards the end of my internship, like week 4 maybe, I decided to start Malaria Free World to foster specifically, to raise awareness specifically about malaria research. Because I feel like we know a lot about how malaria is spread by mosquitoes, and we know about all that stuff, but we don't really know what the current research is, or what's being done to actually cure malaria. We read so many articles in Neuro and DNA and AP Bio. We read so much about how all these brain tumors are being solved, how cancer is being cured, but we never really read about or hear about how malaria is being cured. So that's what I wanted to bring to our community. I just want to start out by
saying that when I first introduced Kritika to Acetalon, I had a secret plan, and that was to get her involved in our malaria program and to eventually get her to join the fight against malaria. But I really had no idea that the plan would be so successful, as you can see from everything that she's accomplished. So I want to congratulate Kritika, and please join me in a big hand for Kritika and everything that she's done. And to support all the work that Kritika is doing, I know that it takes not only all the work that she's put in, but all the work of the volunteers and everyone supporting them. And it does take resources, and I know everyone's been kind with their time and donations, but I'd like to issue a challenge to everyone, which is that during the month of November, for every dollar that is donated to Kritika's organization up to the first $2,500, I'll match that dollar for dollar. So for me, malaria is definitely something that I've personally witnessed. I spent 10 years in Africa at different parts growing up in my life. So now it's my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker today, Dr. Ralph Masicek. His PhD in bioorganic chemistry from the University of Leipzig, Germany. He's an assistant professor at Harvard Medical School and also an assistant professor in the Department of Immunology and Infectious Diseases at the Harvard School of Public
And
Health.
I'm telling you about target identification of febrifugen and halofugenol. Febrifugen is a natural product. In fact, it's the active ingredient in a traditional Chinese medicine that has been used for over 2,000 years to treat malaria. Also, some companies have been pretty creative with vector control. If you believe what we see here, just thought this was a kind of nice way to think about it. I'm not sure if it will ever work. So. All right. Okay, then at this point I would like to thank you for your attention. And if you have more questions, please.
People are dying every year about it.
Right?
Why do I care more about Ebola? How come Ebola is exciting and is on the red carpet and malaria is not on the
Because
red
they
carpet?
feel more threatened by Ebola. No one really kind of cares about or is like worried to get malaria, even if a malaria-infected person would sit right next to you. There's basically no chance that the disease is transmitted to you unless like you would cut yourself and this person would cut yourself and you would shake hands. But with Ebola, it's way different, right? And secondly, we still have efficacious drugs. If you get malaria, chances to get cured are certainly greater than 99% if the disease is diagnosed and if you're here in a hospital. All of these drugs are readily accessible. It's quite different for Ebola. We have no approved treatment. I would like to get started really to just reiterate what this disease is. Malaria is an infectious disease that is transmitted by Anopheles mosquitoes. It's a parasitic disease, and it's caused by a single cellular parasite. And once a mosquito takes a blood meal on a human, so an infected mosquito, it will inject only like 6 to 10 of these malaria parasites. Within the next half hour, most of them will have traveled through the bloodstream and reached the liver of this person. These parasites will now invade the liver cells and over the next 1 or 2 weeks will start to replicate. You will not feel any symptoms at this stage. But these 6 to 10 parasites will turn into tens of thousands, maybe millions of parasites. And after this time, these cysts will burst open and the malaria parasites will be released into the bloodstream, where they immediately start to invade red blood cells. Those are really kind of like special ops teams. They go out and immediately attack, go in, and they start to replicate in these red blood cells. They will feed off the hemoglobin, and once, here you see healthy red blood cell, and once they have like chewed up everything in there, these will burst open, and it will release on the order of 15 to 30 new parasites, which continue to infect red blood cells. At the height of an infection, up to 10% of all of your red blood cells can be infected. You will have up to 100 billion parasites in your blood. There will be, in a malaria patient, there will be more malaria parasites than we have people on this planet. Eventually, some of these parasites will develop into a new stage. It's the so-called sexual stage. And those can be taken up by another mosquito that is feeding on a malaria-infected person. And these parasites will mate in the gut, and then it will kind of move, they will move to the salivary glands, and the cycle closes. It is the most deadly of all parasitic diseases. And it is truly a global threat.
So I want to start by correcting something that somebody said earlier, which was about the eradication of polio, because polio actually has not been eradicated. It's been eliminated from the Western Hemisphere, but there is still polio in the world, mostly Pakistan and Afghanistan. It's a small pocket of polio left, but there's only one disease that's ever actually been eradicated. Any guesses? Shout it out. Smallpox, exactly. Smallpox has been eradicated, and actually I said that wrong. There's only one human disease that's ever been eradicated, because there's one other disease, a disease called rinderpest, the cattle disease, that was eradicated in 2012. But the reason that I like vaccines so much, I happen to think, oh, thank you very much, that's great. I think that vaccines are actually humankind's greatest invention in terms of the amount of lives that they can save. If you look at a disease like smallpox, in 1950, 50 million people got smallpox. In 1980, 0. That is not a coincidence.
So
that is vaccines.
I like to show this slide to my students when I talk about malaria, because we're in Baltimore, and we're very close to this place called Loudoun County. But talking here, I think we're like, what, maybe 1 mile from Loudoun County, or 2 miles? We're extremely close to Loudoun County. So this is something I tell them. It's a case of 2 people very near here being infected with malaria who hadn't gone out of the country. And presumably what happened is that a traveler came into Dulles Airport, was bitten by local mosquitoes that transmitted malaria locally. Fairly rare in the United States. But I always point this out because there is the possibility of local transmission in the United States. And as Ralph mentioned, the United States used to be a malarious area. And that's really what this plot shows here. Today, or within the last 10 years, this map was updated. The dark purple region is the malarious region. So that's the malarious region that you've seen in different maps of the United States, or of the world. But if you go back, turn back the clock 100 years or so, you can see that malaria was all through Europe, a lot of Asia, even in southern England, and through a good part of the United States as well, including right where we're sitting today. And so 100 years ago, there would have been 2 to 3 million cases of malaria per year in the United States. And so malaria is not appropriate to think of it as an African disease, or even a tropical disease, because this is not a tropical area, and this is potentially a malarious area, and historically has been. So that's one thing I like to point out to students. I think everybody is aware that malaria affects a lot of people, so I usually don't harp on that particular statistic. Another question which has come up in some of the questions is, what is malaria? And so one thing to remember just from the get-go, not a bacteria, not a virus, not a fungus. It belongs to this kingdom called protists, which are really a grab bag of organisms that did not fit in well in any other kingdom. So this has animal-like cells, plant-like cells, and fungus-like cells. So malaria has historically been categorized as part of the protozoans, which are the animal-like cells. These are single cells, eukaryotic cells. And what I want to tell you today is a feature about malaria which really makes it a lot more plant-like. And that's first going to be kind of confusing because nobody here probably thinks of malaria as being a plant. But it is actually most similar to plants in a lot of ways, certainly genetically most similar to plants. And I'll explain why that is.
I'm here to tell you what it's actually like to have malaria and my own personal experience with it 10 years ago. When I was 4, I lived in Ghana, West Africa with my mom, and I had malaria not once but 3 times. It was like having the flu, but at least 10 times worse. I had a very high fever of 105 Fahrenheit the first time, and with the fever came horrible, never-ending hallucinations that finally stopped when the fever went down. I had the worst pounding headache you can imagine. I was very nauseated, and I also had very bad body aches. And then there were the symptoms that I don't really care to mention in public. I was only 4 years old at the time, so it was really scary for my mom too. There are 5 types of malaria that affect humans, as you've already heard, and I had the worst and deadliest one, the Plasmodium falciparum. Obviously, I recovered. My mom was able to get treatment for me. Each time the treatment was more involved. The 3rd time I was sick for several days.
Yeah, so right now our aim is primarily on malaria research. So as I mentioned in our mission statement, we are dedicated towards raising money as well as raising awareness about malaria, and the money that we will get all taken out from all the educational events, like the one that we did today. So we'll take all the money that was used today out and then donate the rest at the end of every fiscal year to the Harvard Malaria Initiative.